Hey everyone, Ranger here, and you know, apologies if I sound a little exhausted. I've had a long day at work, and it's now pretty late at night. But you know, I'm pushing this review because it's Jurassic June. So yeah, so we're getting closer to the 30th anniversary of Jurassic Park. So yeah, 30 years with the original film and all the glorious merchandise and other Jurassic media that's come out in the past 30 years. Yeah, so yeah, I've already reviewed the Hammond Collection Concavinator, and now we're taking a look at probably one of my more unique figures in my Jurassic collection, and one that I'm pretty interested in terms of its reputation. And that is, of course, the Jurassic Park 3 React Attack Hasbro Dilophosaurus. So, yeah. So, let's start off with a bit of history of Dilophosaurus. As a lot of us know, the Dilophosaurus in the Jurassic canon is pretty different from the actual animal at this point. And I do mean pretty different with, the new crest that was discovered of like a few years ago, but, that's kind of besides the point. So, in the canon, at least 17 Dilophosauruses were cloned on Isla Sorna, and a few of them were brought over to Isla Nublar for Jurassic Park back in '93. And we all remembered the iconic scene with Dennis Nedry trying to tow his Jeep. But of course, a sneaky Dilophosaurus pops up, and at first it's a little cutesy wootsy, Dennis tries to play fetch with it. Dan tries to threaten it by running him over, or running her over, I should say. But of course, Dilophosaurus has that extra trick with, her iconic frill and starts shooting venom. And of course, starts shooting venom at Dennis, and then kills him in his own Jeep. So yeah. And after that, the Dilophosaurus hasn't really appeared in like the canon materials since then, it did appear in video games and merchandise and all that, but not exactly the canon, unless you count like the Jurassic Park the game from by Telltale, but that it's canon into like the films and all that is kind of left a little iffy at this point. It's kind of complicated, but thankfully it got its major return. Not with, I'm sure some of you are thinking like Jurassic World Dominion, but not actually. It made its kind of triumphant return in Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, particularly in the fourth season, and ironically the last episode of season 4, where a pack of them starts attacking Darius and Kenji through the swamp biome. And in season 5, we saw other Dilophosaurs, and one of them from Isla Nublar, they got captured and was put under mind control by Kenji's dad, who is pretty much a big dick. Seriously, he is literally one of the most unlikable characters in the Jurassic series. A good villain, yes, but pretty awful dad, to say the least. But getting back on track, so at least one of them was put under the mind control at Chip, and then we have, of course, the big dino battle towards the end of the season. And yeah, my memory on season 5 is a little foggy, so apologies. But then, of course, we got Jurassic World Dominion, where, more Dilophosaurus are shown. One of them tries to attack Claire, but Owen subdues her while she tries to spit venom, but she starts, choking at her own venom. And then pack of them starts stalking Lewis Dodson in like the underground subway system of Biosyn, and then the power goes off, and they snuck aboard, and that's how Lewis Dodson met his demise by the Dilophosaurus. Ironically, the same way as Dennis Nedry. So yeah, so that's basically the general history of the Dilophosaurus in the Jurassic canon. I mean, I guess the other one that should be worth mentioning would probably be the like the hologram scene in Jurassic World where one of the raptors faces up, but that's really about it. So yeah, so now getting on to with this figure, I was surprised to hear that this figure in particular has kind of gotten some flack over the years, like particularly with like die-hard older Jurassic Park collectors. They say that the entire Hasbro line is mediocre, and they much prefer the kind of figures and all that. I honestly can't really speak that much on that debate because I am a 2000s kid, so I didn't exactly grow up with the excuse me, with the Kenner figures, nor have I yet to own any of them at this point. So my personal preference will be a little more different than others may think. So considering a majority of my Jurassic collection is from Mattel. But yeah, so with that out of the way, so what are my thoughts on this guy? To be honest, I really enjoy this figure a lot, actually. I mean, I can understand some people's issues that I'll get to, but I think this is a pretty good representation of the Dilophosaurus scene in at least the first Jurassic Park, like in pretty good ways than some may not expect. So yeah, so with that being said, I think we should take a closer look, starting off with the head. The head sculpt looks really good. Just light a little bit. Start to topple over. Take a good zoom. There we go. So yeah, so starting off with the head. The head is really good. Like I said, not accurate to the actual animal, but as a recreation of the Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus, it's not that bad actually. It has a pretty good short, broad snout, and it does, and the detail around the face is really good. Like we can see, nice little scales and bumps that you'll see. There is a little bit of shrink wrap around the fenestra, although that goes with a lot of the theropods in the series. Got the noses picked out. Got the two crested because, the Dilophosaurus, two crested lizard. So, yep. And the eyes are a yellow with a black slit. I did recheck on an image, and the Dilophosaurus in the canon did have a regular pupil, not this slit. I guess the slit was given because it's a more ferocious dinosaur, so they want to make it a little bit more intimidating in toy form, and plus it kind of fits with the more reptilian aesthetic of this figure. So yeah. So continuing on, we got nice teeth. They are rounded since this is a kid's toy, so you want to keep the little ones safe. And is that a hair or is that? I just noticed that. I'll get it off screen, but yeah. So the teeth are a bit rounded, but they're still painted. And the good thing is that they are individually sculpted. So kudos for Hasbro back then. So yeah. And then, of course, we got the tongue, a nicely sculpted with a nice muted pink. Oh, there goes the light. But just did a bit. But we can also see that the tongue actually has a more forked appearance. This could be in reference to the velociraptors themselves, as they were originally had to have a forked tongue, as we see in some stop motion tests for the first movie. But there was change, of course, but Hasbro decided to add a forked tongue to Dilophosaurus. Not sure if that was in reference to the Retro Raptors or just to fit with the, like I said, reptilian aesthetic of the figure. So who knows? But, you know, it doesn't look too bad. And it overall doesn't really detract me from this figure. But, yeah, and of course we got the, you know, frill here. Really nice details on this frill. And I should note that I did got a bargain on this figure for $1 at a garage sale. So, yeah, it was a pretty exciting time for me to just, you know, get out of school right after school on a Friday where I had $1 left. And I saw this guy and I was like, steal. So, yeah. But this also means that my Dilophosaurus does come with some scrapes, especially when he's along with this green around the frill. But, you know, it's not that big of a deal. But continuing on, you know, we got some nice scales all around this frill, you know, more bigger scoot. Well, not scoots, I want to say regular scales. And, you know, we got nice edges around it. And then continue on at the bottom. Got some nice more bumps around. And we can even see the nice membranes around the underside of the frill. So I think that's a pretty nice detail that some people may not notice. So kudos to Hasbro, honestly. So yeah, so continuing on. Of course, we got the main body. The main body has some pretty decent details. Maybe not like the most you know, flashy details on, you know, kids' toys per se. I mean, like I said, this is, you know, was made for kids back then. But even then, it has some really nice details, I'll say. Like, nice enough skin folds, especially around here. But it transitions to nice other variation like these bumps, more rounder scoots, and you know, nice scaly texture here. Nice variety, I want to say. Of course, we got the nice arms here. Nice details where, you know, we can see more than around the shoulders. And, you know, the arms are really nice and slender to accommodate the figure's more slender appearance. But, yeah, nice slender arms. Goes into these nice, you know, longer fingers along with the fingernails. You know, the nails themselves are, you know, kind of, of course, a bit smudged off over the years. But, you know, like I said, this was previously owned, so it is what it is. And then, of course, we got nice details around the fingers. Really nice, you know, nice scales around. Then we got the underbelly. Not as much details, and actually there is sort of a noticeable detail difference here. This side is a bit smoother, while this one has a little bit more variation. I'm not sure if that was a mistake on mine, so you know, I should point that out. And then of course we got more where from my figure, you know, black smudges underneath on mine, but it's no big deal. I do like this a nice transition from, you know, the green to the to this muted gray here. So I think it's really nice. Got some nice details, even around the battery compartment, even around the Lego Mama Jumbo. You know, it says Universal Amblin, 2000 Hasbro, made in China. So yep. So, and then of course we got the sound ports for the sound that I will talk about a little later. Moving on with the legs, you know, legs have, you know, nice details also, you know, nice scoots. This one I think has a little bit more variety though. You can see more of them. There is sort of the shine for the light though. And we can't see the JP3 logo to let you know that this is an official Jurassic Park merchandise. And so none of that bootleg shit that you will see all over. Yeah, look at you, Amazon. But yeah, so yeah, even though I'm not, the biggest collector of classic Jurassic. I can say that the iconic JP logo is nostalgic enough for me. So yeah. So getting on with the nice variation of scales that we'll see on the leg. Really nice. And then continuing on, we get some really nice details starting at the knee here that goes all the way till the toes. So really nicely done. We can see that on both sides. So really nicely done. Yeah, really nicely done. Variation of scales that goes into the toes. Again, a bit of wear over the years. Like I said previously on, older figure. So yeah. Even got some little teeny tiny little details under the feet here. And I should mention even tiny details under these arms also. So really nice attention. Not the greatest details, of course, but at least they're there. So continuing on. I will say that the tail is when the details gets a little bit more smoother, particularly around this base here. It is a little bit more skin-like. But we start getting to see variation on this mid part here on this portion of the tail. We got nice folds under the other side that goes till here, doing nice wrinkles also, and nothing too noticeable, but at least they're there. So really nice. We got the nice tip that is really nice and thin. So yeah. So the overall sculpt of the figure, I want to say is pretty faithful to the if I can get him back on the thing here. And you know what? I actually forgot one important detail aspect. And that is, of course, the dino damage here. I really like the look of this dino damage. Got a nice slash effect, and we see all the guts underneath the rib bones, and nice red muscle detail and nice bone color. So really nice. So yeah. So zooming out a little bit. Now as for the colors are really good actually. While it is not entirely accurate to the actual Dilophosaurus from the first movie, particularly with the lack of yellow and the more bold white, and the addition of the lime green swirl throughout the body, I want to say that this is a pretty nice stylized take on the original Dilophosaurus. The overall body is still like a main green. It's pretty darker, and I really do like the more bold white that we see here. And actually, one point of detail I want to mention when it comes to paint is we can actually see a bit of a transition from the white to the green on this middle portion here. So I think that's a really nice attention to detail. And it is sort of lacking on the other white bits to the green also, I should mention. So, I guess that is a cop-out from not Mattel, Hasbro. But, yeah, I'm not too bothered about that. And the white itself makes the figure pretty bold. And I really do like the addition of the lime green-esque swirls, I should say, as it gives variation to color around here. So yep. And then of course we got the frill here too, that really nice bold color sort of frill that is pretty reminiscent of the iconic scene where it attacks Dad's tree. So I want to say that the colors are pretty faithful and definitely a little bit more bold than what you would see in a lot of modern Mattel figures. That it's specifically with like some of the mainline figures from Mattel these days. So I want to say that Hasbro did a pretty decent job with the Dilophosaurus here back in the day once they got the license. So now on to the articulation. It's actually really good on this guy, considering what the kind of figure it is. So let's start off. So here we have the frill, and the frill It's one of the criticisms I'll bring up when most people think about this figure, but the frill can move like that, 360. And if you're a little worried if it will smudge some paint, I don't think it really does, because I think there's a nice enough gap between the plastic that wouldn't necessarily rub onto the paint. So I'm not entirely sure, but yeah. So, and it spins quite well, so you can kind of get the frill into different positions. I saw most people position their frill like this, but for me, to me, this looks a little bit more appealing, a little bit more accurate to what we see in the films and Camp Cretaceous. So yeah, the arms, and depending on how you position the frill, the arms can go 360 like that, and luckily that doesn't affect the mechanism on the action feature, which I'll get to. And the legs, if depending on the arms, can they? That's a yeah. So it looks like this leg can't really go 360. As for this one, not 360 either. Oh wait, actually yeah, this one can go 360. So the legs articulation, and actually the rest of the articulation in general, is actually pretty good, I must say. So and I really like how smooth the legs and arms are in particular, as especially the legs. Like, one of the things that I kind of dislike about certain bipedals from Mattel is that some of their joints tend to get a little loose over time. I think maybe it's just because they have different joints and you can actually pivot their legs in and out. But for Hasbro, I think this is nice enough engineering. They actually feel pretty stiff, especially after at least over 20 years. So yeah, that is actually pretty impressive. So yeah, I'm definitely impressed by the engineering on the articulation on the Dilophosaurus here. So yeah, articulation is pretty good actually. So before I actually talk about criticisms, let's get into the action feature. So if you pull this lever, it'll move the arms, and unfortunately the batteries on my figure are dead, so I need to replace them later down the line. But you could move the arms, and the sound it would have made, is actually the exact same sound when it first pop up its frill and starts hissing towards Dennis Nedry in the first Jurassic Park. So yeah, that's actually pretty cool actually, and I was really impressed that the sounds were actually still working when I found them in that garage sale, and it was pretty nostalgic to hear those exact sounds. So yeah, and this button here, if you press this bone, it would have made a much more higher pitched screech of that exact hissing sound from the Dilophosaurus. So that's really nice. So the action features, I want to say, are pretty good. Of course, you can't hear that on mine because the batteries need replacing someday. So yeah, it is what it is, but still pretty nice action features. Now, let us get into one of the things that most people complain about, and you can kind of see one of them as I try to position him. So what are some of the criticisms when people have when it comes to this Dilophosaurus that don't exactly bother me as much? Well, one of them is that some people think that the frill is a bit too top heavy, so depending on how you position the Dilophosaurus, yeah, and actually we can move the fossil for a bit. So yeah, so depending if you like him a bit lower down, let's say, yeah, that does limit like the enjoyment if you're really nitpicking on how you position your Dilophosaurus. So this I can't understand can really bother some people, because if you want him in a more crouching position, he's not exactly gonna properly stand like that. So I mean, of course, he can probably stand, just with in a bit more upright position so the frill can hold. So yeah, I don't mind this position necessarily, as I don't really mind it because it does still give a good head view of the frill, and overall dynamic posture. Yes, but I can understand where many people really don't necessarily like. You really need to be specific when posing your Dilophosaurus, and it can be a bit a pain in the ass if you're trying to position him in shelves and stuff like that. So that I can understand. Another criticism is the frill doesn't really remove, and because if anyone recalls, and I actually do remember, there is a specific Dilophosaurus toy from Kenner that you could have removed the frill on and off, so you could have the frill, detached from the Dilophosaurus to make it look like neutral, and then you put the frill back on to look as if it's about to shoot venom. And of course, we would see that sort of feature with the Mattel Ember collection Dilophosaurus and Hammond collection Dilophosaurus. So could Hasbro have done that same engineering technique? I guess. Because it would be nice to actually remove the frill on off of this figure, because the actual figure, aside from the frill, let's say, would have been a nice standalone Dilophosaurus in on itself. So yeah, and I mean, if you're really, really talented in like modifying toys and stuff, I guess you could find a way to modify this frill to pop on and off. If anyone wants to attempt, but it's actually good at engineering toys. I'm just making sort of a off the head suggestion for anyone that is good at re-engineering their own toys, because I have seen some people on Instagram actually make some tiny adjustments to their figures of different kinds. So yeah, so frill definitely could be engineered to put on and off. Another thing that most people don't like is the big ass dino damage, because they all quote, everyone says, no matter the review, how is this guy still alive? And to that I say, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, if the Hasbro figures were to have, let's say, the dino damage patches, then it would make sense. So you could have the slashing effect and stuff. But yeah, how would this Dilophosaurus be alive? But it's part of the fun when enjoying some of these Hasbro figures. And to me, I actually don't mind the dino damage. I probably may have said that, but yeah. The dino damage itself, I don't think it's really like a big issue for me, at least. So yeah. So do I think this figure is a bit overhated? In some areas, yeah. I think most people, when it comes to like really hating on this figure, it does mostly have to come down with posturing the figure itself, because of the heavy frill and the fact that the frill isn't removable like the older Kenner figure. Like I said, I'm mostly 2000s kids. I didn't really had most of the Kenner figures, and if I can have this fossil on top back, yeah. Actually, let me, because I'm probably gonna do comparisons afterwards. So that's and there goes lighting. There we are. So yeah, never really grew up with the Kenner figures, so I can't exactly have the exact same rage that a lot of people had when the Jurassic Park 3 figures were being released. So yeah, so as in terms of like other aspects, like let's say details and sculpting and articulation, I think they're all pretty fair for what this figure is. And in my opinion, it doesn't distract from the overall little nostalgia I do have with this figure. So yeah. So with that being said, I think we should move on to the size comparison. So let's actually compare it to one of the only humans I do have, actually probably the only human I do have, and you might see him in our videos, maybe. But here is Owen, and oddly enough, although if this is supposed to be like the actual Dilophosaurus from the first movie, this is definitely over scale. And along with the rest of the Dilophosaurus, since they are part of that smaller scale that the Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus is known for. But oddly enough, depending on your position, this is actually pretty accurate to what the actual animal may have looked like when compared to an actual person. And a bit of a fun trivia, if I can put these two in a good position. There we go. So a bit of a trivia for anyone that hasn't actually read the Jurassic Park novel or haven't exactly not too knowledgeable about the novel itself. The original Dilophosauruses in the novels were actually around the same size as the actual Dilophosaurus, and in many regards a little bit more accurate to what we see in Jurassic Park. Although they still have, the poisonous spit, it's actually a little bit more of the foamy spit rather than like the black goo that we're accustomed to in the films and Camp Cretaceous. So yeah, so a little bit of interesting trivia. Oh, and also the fact that they have pretty cool leopard patterns in the novel. So yeah, actually, the more I think about it, I may prefer the novel Dilophosaurus over the movie Dilophosaurus, but that's just how I see it. But yeah, if you want to think of this sizing as, let's say, a human with, let's say, an actual size, realistic sizing for Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus, I think it is pretty decent, and at least in my opinion. So yeah, and since Owen is here, let's compare it to a basic Mattel figure. Here we have, of course, Blue, and this is the exact same Blue I have since Fallen Kingdom was released. So yeah, so comparing the kind of the old with the new, but yeah. And this is where I kind of brought up the fact on how Hasbro kind of still had their own, peaks when it comes to quality, especially with the paint. You can see how the paint kind of runs down to the Dilophosaurus tail, while Blue's stripe kind of ends right here. There's still a decent figure, but something to keep in mind if you're still one of those that really, really don't like this figure. But that's just how I feel. So yeah, so interesting pairing here. So yep. And yep, there goes that issue many people are talking about, top heavy. Now, another one that I want to compare is actually a more modern take on, the dino damage figures, and is of course the Queumelisaurus. I kind of already forgot how to pronounce this guy. Yeah, you can see, sort of the engineering. Kind of cool how Mattel are doing this, buttons here with the newer extreme damage figures. I think that's what they call it now. But yeah, so pretty cool. A lot of people still think, should include a patch here. So yeah, so interesting comparison between, an older, dying damage figure with, a newer one. So yeah, pretty interesting right there. And let us, of course, think about, the dreaded days when Hasbro started making figures for Jurassic World. And so yeah, so let's cut to the chase. Here we have my custom painted Battle Damage Indominus Rex. And you can see I did a big overhaul with her just to see how my paint job would fare when this was originally released. Yeah, I want to say that my attempt at painting, was a lot better. And if I do end up making a video on this one in particular, I'll go over, some of the specific quirks that people have. So yeah, so of course one quirk I'll say is, they still had, the screw holes, even though I patched mine up here. That is something you will definitely not see when it comes to the older Hasbro figures like this one here. Except for the battery compartment, but that's understandable. But yeah, pretty interesting. Of course, the Indominus Rex looks way better than when it was originally released because it's custom. So yeah, and of course I did paint it up the dino damage on her to be a little bit more muted in color. Haven't attempted to color the bones, but not sure because that's already damaging the paint when I do the sliding door. But yeah, so yeah, really interesting comparison here. Of course, not size accurate, of course, as Dilophosaurus would be way bigger, even compared to an actual Dilophosaurus. But yeah, so there's that. Then, yeah, thankfully I got used to that toppling over. So then, of course, let's compare with more collector's item. Here we have the Amber Collection 93 Raptor that I customized also. But yep, so most people kind of make a joke on how the Jurassic Park Raptor sizes are actually in line with the size of the actual Dilophosaurus. So it's sort of a swap actually. So yeah, of course these guys are kind of around the same size. The Velociraptor is of course a bit way bigger in terms of body. So yeah, so interesting comparison there. And then let's compare it with other Hasbro dinos that I have, and these two have been completely customized. Here we have the Rex here and the Raptor here. Oh, yeah. And I should note that if there's one figure that does have a habit of not standing as well, it's definitely this Raptor, at least in my opinion. But let's try to put her in the position we want her. There we go. So yeah. So this is all interesting because originally all of these three sculpts were part of the initial lineup that Hasbro did for Jurassic Park 3. The T-Rex and Raptors were originally part when the specific T-Rex figures, the specific figures I have of the T-Rex and Raptor are actually from the 2009 re-release of the Jurassic Park line that were actually Toys R Us exclusives. So yeah, these two were kind of very beginnings of my Jurassic collection. So I had these two for quite a little while, and I did specifically remember also seeing the re-release of the Dilophosaurus and even the Triceratops also. I actually really like that repainted Dilophosaurus. It has a really light, vibrant red all over its body, and yellow swirls all around it. That was a pretty cool paint job actually. Not accurate, of course, but a really unique, vibrant, striking paint job. So yeah, sort of a reunion of what Hasbro did way back in 2001, and of course they started re-releasing this figure bit by bit until they were re-released in 2013 for the 20th anniversary of Jurassic, and then they botched up their whole franchise with their Jurassic World line, but we all know that. So yep, so interesting comparison here. Yep. And just to compare with your average dinosaur model, here we have the Safari Ltd Prestosuchus here. Just to give you a comparison with an average dinosaur model. Well, technically not dinosaur since this guy is a prehistoric, not prehistoric crocodile. Also, just a crocodile relative of the Triassic, but a really interesting comparison. And I must add, I really do and really love this Prestosuchus here. It's one of my favorite safari models actually. So yep. So let's bring back the fossil base here. So yeah, so final thoughts on the React Attack Hasbro JP3 Dilophosaurus. I think this is an underrated figure. I mean, it's not perfect, obviously. I definitely agree with that you need to position the Dilophosaurus a specific way to not have him topple over. The frill could have been easily removable in a sense, and just a little other things, but I don't think this figure is as bad as many people think. If any, I think it's overhated, if I'm to be completely honest. I think this is a really solid Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus. If you're a fan of the design, if you're a fan of, the scene of, of it attacking Dennis Nedry, I think if you don't let the negative hate towards this figure really sink into you, then you'll definitely enjoy it like I do, because I really do enjoy this figure. I think all of the positives, in a way, definitely outshines some of the negative aspects. I really love the colors. I think the articulation is fair. The sculpting details are pretty good for the kind of figure it is. So, yeah, I think if you don't exactly let the negative response really dive into you, then you'll enjoy this like I do. This is a really good figure overall. So yeah, and in terms of how rare it is, stuff like that, I did actually check the eBay, and I was surprised to see that this figure is actually one of the more cheaper classic, if you want to say classic Jurassic figures. I think the lowest I've seen is around 10 to around 14 bucks. So it's still pretty fairly priced even today. So, and of course I'm talking about the ones that are, out of package. I think the in-package ones would be a little bit more valuable. But, this is not really a difficult figure. Like I said, found this guy at garage sale, so lucky me for only $1. So like I said, if you don't let the negative reviews really hinder your judgment and all that, you'll definitely enjoy this figure. It is a really good Dilophosaurus figure overall. So, yeah. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully, I'll do at least another review for, Jurassic June. So, yeah. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.